From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Afternoon Edition.
Well, we have breaking news in the Israel-Hamas war right now. 2 U.S. hostages, a mother and daughter, have been released by Hamas. More than 200 other hostages are still being held. Meanwhile, it appears a ground assault by Israel into Gaza could happen at any moment. And President Biden is set to ask Congress for roughly $100 billion in emergency spending, including assistance for Israel. Ian Lee reports from Tel Aviv.
From the air and on the ground, Israeli forces could be seen along the border with Gaza Friday. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Israel does not plan to control life in Gaza once it destroys Hamas, and there's no longer a threat. The Hamas-controlled Palestinian territory has been devastated by Israeli airstrikes since the group brutally killed more than 1,000 Israeli civilians nearly 2 weeks ago and took more than 200 people hostage, including this mother and her young children.
I try not to think about the worst. This is the only thing that keeps me going.
In a speech last night, President Biden made the case for his $105 billion funding request to Congress, which would include support for Israel and Ukraine.
It's a smart investment that's going to pay dividends for American security for generations.
The Pentagon is also preparing to send 2 Iron Dome missile defense systems to Israel in the next few days to prevent more rockets from reaching targets here in Tel Aviv and elsewhere. As concerns mount, the violence will escalate into a wider conflict. In the West Bank, residents of a refugee camp surveyed the damage following a deadly battle Thursday involving Israeli troops.
I'm angry, but what we can do, Yani. So we just can pray for them to be safe.
And Israel ordered the evacuation of one of the biggest towns on its northern border with Lebanon after a rocket attack from Hezbollah injured several people.
And overnight, an American naval ship, the USS Carney, intercepted missiles fired from Yemen, possibly headed for Israel. That's according to the Navy. And California Governor Gavin Newsom is in Israel. He met with Israel's President Isaac Herzog. California is also sending medical supplies to the war-torn region. The governor will now travel to China for a summit focusing on climate change. And groups in the Bay Area making their voices heard, calling for an immediate ceasefire on both sides of the war. In San Francisco, some demonstrators chained themselves to the federal building. Others carried the Palestinian flag, along with signs that read "Americans for Palestine" and "Pelosi, ceasefire now." And some gathered for a candlelight vigil at Manny's in the Mission last night, all to recognize the innocent lives that have been lost in this war. Some say they welcome the help President Biden is offering, but many fear most of that aid will come in the form of weapons.
I mean, just more money for arms. You know, the arms have to be people holding arms with each other, throwing away the arms and joining together. That's what I want to see.
It's very hard to know what the right thing is. The only thing I think is that killing each other is not the right thing.
And the U.S. State Department wants all Americans overseas to be on alert as tensions in the Middle East and elsewhere continue to heat up. Sean Chitnis is at SFO with a message of caution and how travelers are taking it.
Here at the International Terminal, we're starting to meet more passengers who are familiar with this new guidance, but they are not as concerned as they get ready to fly outside of the country. The State Department is calling this a worldwide caution because of increased tensions in various locations around the globe, including potential terrorist attacks, demonstrations, or violent actions against U.S. citizens and their interests. The State Department is telling U.S. citizens to stay alert in popular locations for tourists while abroad, and they also say you should sign up for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program to receive alerts and make it easier for the government to locate you if you're in an emergency overseas. We spoke to a couple people who tell us they won't do anything different while they're overseas.
That's the world we live in, and it's a complicated situation, but we're not staying home. I mean, it's, you know, we've planned this for a long time, and we're going to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not tripping, you know. I think they're kind of always saying stuff like this, and I travel internationally all the time, and I haven't seen anything weird at all.
Experts say that you can be better prepared by knowing exactly where the U.S. Embassy is when you are in another country, as well as locating any nearby hospitals. You should also make sure your passport is with you at all times. One final guidance from the State Department: to stay in touch with their social media, where they'll give you specific instructions for the particular countries you're visiting.
And for the very latest updates from Israel and reaction from the Bay Area, head to KPIX.com or watch us streaming anytime on the free CBS News app. Well, new developments on Capitol Hill. Now Republicans are dropping Congressman Jim Jordan as their nominee for House Speaker. Natalie Brand reports this comes after a third failed vote on Jordan and puts them back at square one.
A speaker has not been elected.
During a third ballot, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan fell far short of the votes needed to become speaker, once again losing ground among House Republicans. This time, 25 voted against him.
We only lost a couple. We had a couple absents who would have been for us.
In a news conference ahead of the vote, Jordan said he would not back down, even after losing back-to-back ballots this week.
We need to help Israel. We need to get the appropriations process moving so that the key elements of our government are funded and funded in the right way, particularly our military.
On Thursday night, he held closed-door meetings with GOP members still opposed to his candidacy, a list that has grown to more than 20.
This guy refuses to lose, and that's okay. I find that to be very good, but there's some point that we're going to have to move forward, and we can't keep the country shut down.
In the meantime, Congress cannot take action on President Biden's request for security assistance for Israel and Ukraine and the U.S. budget. A government shutdown is looming in less than a month.
We recognize that Jim Jordan is a clear and present danger to the American people, and we are going to be here for as long as it takes to end this national nightmare.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries urged Republicans to find a bipartisan path forward. Members are on notice to stick around through the weekend to be available to vote.
And again, Republicans are dropping Congressman Jim Jordan as their nominee for House Speaker. We'll keep you updated on their next moves. Meanwhile, all 210 Democrats present today voted for Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York for Speaker. Now to our top stories around the Bay. It appears teachers and San Francisco Unified have avoided a strike after an all-night marathon session. They now have a tentative agreement. That's according to the teachers union. Part of the deal is a $9,000 raise for certified teachers after a year of working and a minimum wage of $30 per hour. This comes after months of rallying and picketing to voice teachers' demands. Union members and the San Francisco Board of Education still need to vote on the agreement before it becomes official. Okay, first alert weather now feels a lot more like fall right here in the Bay Area after some unusually hot temperatures for October. Meteorologist Jessica Birch has your Friday forecast. Jess.
Daytime highs today throughout the Bay Area are sitting nice and mild. We're talking about 70s into Fremont, 80s into Livermore, and 70s and 80s widespread throughout most of the Bay Area. Yesterday down in Morgan Hill, we were forecasting triple digits. Today we're in the 80s, so a lot cooler in the grand scheme of things as low pressure moves its way in. It's cooling us off. It's giving us these cloudy skies, and it's actually giving us a chance of showers as we head into our weekend forecast too. Today, our daytime highs up into Novato, 76 degrees. You know, yesterday we were talking about 80s and 90s widespread throughout the Bay Area, so it's actually a kind of a nice treat to see these cool temperatures and cloudy conditions give us that fall feeling. So here's what we're looking at heading into this weekend. The rain showers start rolling their way in as we head into Sunday morning. It'll smell like rain, it'll feel fall-like, and then we're actually left with about 1/100 of an inch of rain along our coastline. We're going to see about 1/4 of an inch of rain up near Napa and about 1/2 inch off near Fairfield before it clears up into Monday.